So I'm Jacob Stark. I'm here in Palo Alto, California. I'm a product manager with SAP Cloud for Analytics. I am hoping to just help as much as I possibly can today to make your dashboards and your reports a little bit less chaotic. I'm going to try and share what I can and what I've learned. I've designed hundreds of dashboards and reports at this point, and I'm going to share some insights with you today. But I'd really like to do this more collaboratively, because it makes me really nervous when someone stands up and says, I'm an expert on something like data visualization, because there's so many different ways to do it, and there's so many different things that people have learned or get insights from. So usually when I do this type of interaction, I want to learn from you just as much. So we're going to make this really collaborative and really interactive, and we're going to all share our insights. Now, I did a very similar webinar last year, and it was focused on Lumira. And so if you've seen that one, it's going to be very similar, except we're going to kind of breeze through the content in the beginning, and then we're going to do hands-on inside of Cloud for Analytics. And we're going to create a report all together, all 100 of us or however many there are right now. We're going to all together redesign a report and make it look a lot better. So first off, why am I talking to you? So I have my undergrad in animation from the #2 university in the U.S. for animation. So apparently that means I can draw or design. And so this is the type of boring stuff I used to draw when I drew for corporate. I would draw wireless routers. So yeah, so that's what you can do if you get a degree in design. So I worked as a product manager in BI for 7 years, and then went off and got my MBA. Here's another drawing I did, the school I went to. So I went off to Duke. And so apparently, if you have an MBA and a background in design, it means you get put in charge of doing all the dashboard and report designs for any company you've ever worked for. So I've had to learn a lot on my own, but as I was saying, even though I'm going to share with you what I've learned, I'm still learning quite a bit and would love to hear your insights as well. So let me first expose you to the thought process I have as I'm designing reports and dashboards. So here, I'm going to show you the worst possible dashboard that I've kind of seen, and it is so convoluted, it's really ugly. This is kind of, I've actually seen things like this very, very, very often. So usually when I first get something like this, just before I even can focus on it and start asking business questions, the very first thing I do is I try to get rid of all of the chart junk. So that's going to be all of the extra lines, all of the extra grid lines we don't really need, anything that's outlining unnecessarily. I just try to wipe all of that out so I can just start seeing what I'm working with more. So once I've gotten rid of the chart junk, I get rid of all the 3D. So a lot of applications, for some reason, still support 3D. And I don't know why, because if you've seen a 3D translucent pie chart, it's almost impossible to tell which slice is bigger or which slice is smaller. And speaking of which, I also always get rid of pie charts whenever I can. I also will try to obscure any unnecessary information from the main page. So, looking at this one, okay, great, we have the actual complaint type. This might actually be really good and useful information. And a lot of times when people are designing reports, they think to themselves, I want to present every single piece of information I could possibly show, so that way if they have any questions, they can answer this one report or this one dashboard. And I think we've all been victims to those types of reports where we are just inundated with information. Now, what I usually do in that type of situation is I will take that information and I'll move it to an appendix. I'll move it to a page 2. I'll do whatever I can to just keep the data so that way you have that peace of mind you can still get there, or I'll make it where you can drill down to it or something like that. But I will usually take that and just hide it, obscure it, don't have it as your very, very front page item.
Is not a passcode that I can confirm. Please try entering your passcode again, followed by the...
Thank you.
All guests have been muted.
Okay, so then once I've done that, I will go through and I'll try to start focusing now on telling the story. Usually this is where you would start, but I'm more of a visual person, so I usually just want to clear out everything I can first. Then I start thinking about telling the story. So one thing you noticed was I did get rid of my pie chart. And for instance right here, between the blue and the brown, it's really hard to tell which is larger, which is smaller. I just usually try to avoid this in general. And then also, I see this a lot where people will use pie charts for things they really shouldn't use it for. For this one, it's on a time basis. So it's telling me the first, second, third quarter. We absolutely would never want to show time in a pie chart or something like that. So instead, we'll show it more sequentially, and we'll switch it into a line. And now this tells much more of the story. So before, we had no idea what this data could mean. It took us too long to interpret. Now, as we're looking at it, we can see very, very quickly, okay, our costs are going down. And that's a very clear story. Same thing, we're going to get rid of our stacked bar chart. It just makes it too hard for me to be able to read the stacked bar chart. And when I split it up, now I can actually see more the different trends that are going on between the different products. It's a lot faster for me now that I've broken it up this way. And then sometimes it's better just to go with a number. So you see down here, we've got our goal, plan, versus met. I'm just going to show it with the goal and then with the actual. And sometimes that's so much easier. Because like as an organization, we're all trying to hit 500 or you know what I mean? Sometimes a number really is the best possible chart and you don't need to go overboard and do some form of visualization when really you can get by just showing a number. Once I've done that, I'll start breaking it up and I'll start moving it into like big, little, and small. So I follow the Western way of reading. If I was designing a report for somewhere in the East, I would have to do this the opposite direction. But I do left to right. And so you'll see what I consider the most important metric is maybe my goal and where I'm at so far on hitting my goal. And I'll make that front and center to the left. And then I will use size to try to convince the viewer what's the most important thing they should be looking at while they're going through this. And then as I'm doing it, I'm going to try to, another thing that sometimes it's a default with applications, you'll have stuff like this, which is the axis label. Axes will be like really big and oversized for some reason by default. And then your data itself will be really small. So when I start now getting into an actual design mode, so far I've just been manipulating the story and massaging it, but now I'm going to start looking more about the visualization. So one huge thing that's always a benefit is just downplaying the size and color of your axes, and that way I focus much more on the data. So if you look at the two of those, I mean, what pops most to you here should hopefully now be that trend line, which is what you really want to see really quickly, versus over here where you've got like these really bold, huge axis labels. And then I usually would do a softer gray or some form of a muted tone when I'm doing my my labels, so that way it even pulls less from what's going on with that line. So you can see here's this heavy black, and now as we're muting it down, that's looking a lot nicer. And same thing, like I'm going to try to shrink everything I can, and look how this comes to the front now. So this really comes a lot nicer and a lot cleaner out once I've made those changes. Then I'm going to start changing my colors up. I prefer, this one is it's a little bit of an outdated example. I prefer actually usually not to use green. I usually don't use red. I mostly, and that's because green and red can indicate good or bad depending upon the country. So I'm going to focus much more on muted tones. I'll usually do scales of blue or scales of purple, so that way the person doesn't have any interpretation of the data. Now, if I'm doing IBCS standard, which is like for financial reporting, everything can be black and sometimes checkered bars, and then red just to indicate if there's an issue. So once I've gone through here, and oh, by the way, Adobe Color is an amazing application. So if you're ever looking for colors, here's a great resource where you can jump into Adobe Color and you can play around, and it'll figure out for you what colors match best. A lot of times people are like, well, what color should I use with this? Just choose a color on Adobe Color, and it'll give you a whole palette that you can use with it. Okay, so this is cool and everything, but I don't know how to interpret this data. So costs going down, is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? Sales, where they're at, I get that sales are doing well, maybe that it's recovering from a bad week too, but what was our goal for our sales? So the other thing that's really important now as we're thinking about the data and as we're going back to the person who had us create the report is asking those questions of how should this look? What should this, what story are you trying to tell? So that's where I'll start adding goal lines. So once you put those goal lines in, it's a lot clearer now. Yeah, our costs are nicely below our $5 goal, but our sales are just above what our goal was, you know. So we can now kind of start seeing where we are in terms of our different goals And that's really important, is always providing context to the different graphs and charts that you have. And you see also I'm going to use red over here. I'm just going to use like a color indicator to try to let you know that there's something going on with January new customers. Now when I'm done, I'll probably just throw in a divider line, break up the space a little bit, and try to make it look a little bit more designed. Now this is just for a really brief overview. We're gonna do something a lot more modern looking in just a moment. And actually, in fact, I have a little bit of an update on it right in here, but you can see the massive difference from before to where we are now. And styles have really changed, and so what we're seeing a lot today is really going more flat and minimal. So even from where I was here, this used to be in style like 3 years ago when I was first doing this, or 4 years ago when I was first doing this. And so this idea of like, let's do drop shadows, or let's have textured backgrounds, or let's have dividing lines, that's all gone away. So if you're still using those are probably, it's time to retire them. And now we're using much more just flat colors. So flat colors, this one has a slight gradient going on in that blue background just to create interest. So this is what we're seeing a lot more of, is tile-based approach, a lot of bright white is coming through, a lot of print layout. And then as you see here, here's kind of my more muted tones with my goal lines. And then we're also seeing a lot of movement towards thinner fonts. So if you're doing font selection, the safe bet, even though it's not as readable, if you want to look in style, is to go with a very, very thin font today. So yeah, this is a little bit more updated. And then we could take this even further. And what I'm also seeing a lot of right now is even trying to get off of that tile-based grid and going completely flat. This is a lot of what I see in designs. This looks very Microsoft Metro kind of style, which has kind of been dominating. And then even further, getting rid of all colors. So you see here where really I can still read this chart without having any color at all. And that's kind of, again, a huge trend is if you can get away from showing anything in additional, do it. Simplify it down as much as humanly possible for the end consumer. So that's kind of like what we're seeing in terms of style. So, well, first off, some resources. So if you're not using information is beautiful, information aesthetics, check out that website if you're into data visualization. So we're kind of just doing like high level ideas today, but this website just has some gorgeous visualization examples. It also has some ugly ones, but it's got some really great suggestions for things that you could do. I use a lot of images sometimes as like backgrounds, etc. You can get free public domain images from Flickr in its Creative Commons area. Sometimes you have to do attribution, sometimes you don't. That's a great resource. If you're a Lumira user, you can also use Fotolia. And for Lumira, they've got a license for Fotolia. I also use Font Shop for getting new fonts. I use Flat Icon a lot. So if you've never tried out Flat Icon, I use it heavily. And that's where you can get really nice looking icons that you can use throughout your reports. And again, I can't stress enough, I use it a lot. So this is a great place for free vector icons. It'll let you know if and when you have to do attribution, and then sometimes you just pay $10 or something and you don't have to do any attribution, you just buy the license. These are just some resources that I use on a regular basis. Also, there's the SAP Lumira Data Visualization Handbook. So a lot of what we covered today is better detailed and described inside this visualization handbook. And it has a lot of, which charts you use when type information. Although you'll see in Cloud for Analytics, a lot of that is automatically done by the application for you. And then if you're really into data visualization, so we're kind of doing like a shotgun approach of trying to hit the different skill levels on this call. But if you're really into data visualization, you want to get into it on a technical level, I'd highly recommend Edward Tufte. He's absolutely fantastic. And something like the visual display of quantitative information is a fantastic resource. So Tufte is a fabulous person to look to for this. Okay, so why is this important? So a lot of us are alive today because of the concept of germ theory, which is that there are germs and that they kill people and that there's things we can do to stop it. And it actually all came about because of visualization. So in 1854, there was a cholera outbreak, and over, I think it was 612 people ended up dying at this cholera outbreak in London. And there was this guy, John Snow, And John believed that it was because of diseases or germs that were inside of the water of a contaminated well. And that went against the prevailing notion at the time, which is that it was caused by this fog, this miasma, and that people who were sinful would breathe in the air of this fog and that they would get sick and die. And he was like, no, it's literally contaminated water. But this is groundbreaking. The idea of contaminants being in water hadn't actually been fully investigated at that time or proven. And there was this reverend who really believed in the miasma theory who was advocating that at the time. Well, what John Snow did was he created a visualization that showed all of the deaths stacked up right next to the pump. So here's the pump, and you can see with this visualization all of the deaths that happen in proximity of the pump. And as you go further and further away from the pump, there's less death. And then there's also places that have their own pump, like this brewery, where there's 0 deaths. This data visualization was able to convince the Reverend Whitehead that there really was something that was going on with the water. And they teamed up together and were able to interview the woman who had flushed the diaper down the pump that ended up being the definitive proof that it was contaminated and that it spread out throughout everything else. And because of that, they were able to save countless hundreds of millions of lives by being able to understand the concept of these pathogens and these germs and things like that were in the water. So data visualization literally can change the face of all of history. And if that reverend hadn't seen this and hadn't teamed up with them and hadn't been convinced by this visualization, how much longer would it have taken and how many more people would have died is to be known. And it can also change your perspective of things. For instance, a lot of people talk about Africa as if it's its own country instead of thinking about it truly as a continent that is home to so many different countries. So visualization can help change a political conversation. It can help you understand something like Napoleon's travels. So this is why you never go to fight a war in Russia. You can watch as that huge block of army dwindles down, and you can see down below the temperatures, and you can see as it returns, and you can compare who left versus who returned, and the absolute decimation of the army just going out to Moscow. And this shows bomb blasts during World War II in London. So again, just some cool visualizations to help you think about things in a different way and then help convince people of maybe taking a different approach or path in life. And when there's some things which are just literally impossible to describe without a visualization. Like for instance, sometimes we do a fun game where we tell someone to describe to another human being without drawing it what a circle is. And this is the literal textbook definition of a circle, a curved line with every point equal distance from the center. If you told me just that description, I wouldn't even know that that was a circle. I'd have no idea. So there's definitely certain things that can really only be convinced and conveyed through a data visualization. And this matters a lot today because we have so much more information today. And so everyone on this call hopefully knows just how much we're astronomically growing in the amount of data that we're collecting. And we're able to do all sorts of really cool stuff with it now. So this is from SAP. This is NBAstats.com. We're able to show the shots, and you're able to get all sorts of real-time stats from the games now. We've got cameras, I think, in every single NBA arena that we can get that real-time data and have a second screen experience. And supposedly, it was metrics and stats that helped Germany win at the World Cup. And again, there's just so many different ways that you can look at data, large content of data. Now, just another really quick resource before I forget, D3 is also a great place if you're looking for charts and other things that you can plug in. Absolutely fantastic. If there's anyone on this call who's not familiar with D3, go for it. Okay, so let's jump into a Cloud for Analytics demo. And first, let me just make sure on the line I'm not too far behind. Good. We're doing fine. Okay. And so I kind of rushed through that. I feel like that was all over the place for me, but that's fine because that's going to give us way more time to play in Cloud for Analytics. So Cloud for Analytics, just a little bit of a background to Cloud for Analytics. It is a pure SaaS-based solution, so you buy it per user per month. You can't install it. which is actually really nice because you don't have to worry about maintaining it. You don't have to worry about if you end up with 5 users, but purchasing something for 1 million users. You know what I mean? So this is a scalable per user per month, and it is it's sitting on top of the HANA Cloud platform, although some of the data service is also done using Hadoop. And as I first come into this application, I'm in as an admin, so I can go ahead, I can manage my users, I can set up teams and roles, I can connect to different servers, I can do all this stuff. Now, most people won't see below this fold. Most people, when they come in, they'll just see this top area. And so what would happen is someone would come in and they would, after they're already connected to their system, they'd go in and they'd model out their data. This is usually a more advanced user. And once they've modeled the data, they'll start creating stories. And right here from the front page, this is like a splash screen for the front page. I can drag and drop an Excel file right onto this page, and it'll model it for me. I have 2 options. I can either prepare it myself, or I can just say, I'm feeling lucky, and it'll model all the data right for me on the spot. But once I've got my data in here, we can start creating some stories. So I've created an absolutely awful story for us to get started with. We're going to do a live demo as we make it better. Someone shared with me. But here we go. So we can see I've got all of these page level. So these are input controls that allow me to filter. So you can see I'm filtering across New England, West, Atlantic, South. I've got these. I also have this filter for what type of product I have. So I apparently have filled like grocery items, household items, etc. And then I have different store chains. And then I also have date ranges. So these are all page level filters that I have here on the side. I've got this nice map here that's showing all of my store locations. So apparently I have stores all throughout the U.S. And then here we can see kind of how that revenue breaks down by the different regions. Got a nice clock up here, so that way if I forgot what time it was, I can look at this and remember what time it is. And then we've got our sales revenue for each of these regions. Again, it looks like, but more as like a heat map. And then I can see quantities sold across all those different stores. Oh, I can even drill down. I can see all the data for all these different regions. That's kind of cool. Got gross margin. Okay, so as I'm showing this to you, and I can see over time how much was sold, as I'm showing this to you, now we're going to have some fun. I would love for you to start writing in chat some things that you wish I could change about this story, and we'll start making changes to it. So any suggestions at all that you have?
Jacob, just in the meantime, there's a question from Deepu. Maybe
oh, nice.
Going a bit ahead, does the map support filtering and drill down to another layer and filtering a chart based on map selection?
Paul says show the UK, not the US. That's a suggestion from Paul. And then Deepu, yes, we can show that, and let's do that. So you want to show filtering and drill down to another layer and filtering a chart based on map selection. And yeah, we can drive that. So let's go ahead and make sure that we do things like that. So again, I'm going to slowly scroll through here, and I really do want your feedback. It seems weird at first, but by the end of this call, you're going to be so happy we did it this way. We're going to, as a group, make this way, way better as a visualization. Now, I wish there was a way.
So I can read out the questions if you want, Jacob.
Sweet. Okay.
So apart from Paul McDonald saying show UK, not US, which you got, Peter has said too many visualizations on one page.
Yeah, totally agreed.
Yeah, and same from Pavan Kumar, similar, too many stories there.
Definitely. So what ones do you want to get rid of? Let's tackle that one as well as we're going through this. Can I get rid of this clock? Let me get rid of this clock. Unless someone really wants the clock. Does anyone here really, really think that the story is going to fail without the clock?
Matthew has said get rid of
the clock. Okay, thanks, Matt. Okay, so clock is gone. And what about these two? So I feel like they're redundant. Someone, do I want both of these? Can I get rid of one of them So let's wipe out this one as well. What other ones? And keep in mind, you can also move stuff. If there's stuff that you see where you're like, I may want to see this, but I want to see it on a different page, that works too. We'll just create another page. Now notice this application is totally cloud-based. So anyone who signs in is going to see the same thing. Everyone's always going to be on the latest version. It's pretty nice like that. And you saw I just went up here to this plus sign and added a second page. So we can actually copy and paste things off of one page to another. So if you see anything you think we should also move, we can move it. If you see any other charts that you hate.
So not really a moving question, but a question from Jimmy Dickinson. Can you change the color of the sales revenue from orange to green?
Perfect. Okay, so that's the other thing is like there's so many colors that are going on in here, right? So maybe we start getting, and especially that orange is pretty nasty. So now I'm probably going to avoid green for the reason I mentioned earlier, which is green is usually conveying something, like it's usually saying it's a good thing, and we don't know if it's a good thing or not. So I'm going to change it just to this like bluish tone where it's a little bit muted. And now another thing on color is how easy is it to look at those store sales? When I look at this, it's incredibly hard to see what the store sales are as I'm looking through it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come into here. I'm going to use like a dark map instead. That pops a little bit better. And then let's go ahead and on this layer, let's maybe color it by something, maybe by sales revenue. And that's a lot easier to see now. And then let's maybe choose, it's a little bright, isn't it? Let's see. That's fine. We'll do that. We'll just bring down the opacity a little bit.
Yeah, a couple of points, remove currency signs and add spacings between the charts.
Yes. Okay, so let that, I love these ideas. Keep going with them. I'll try to keep up. And you can see how quick and easy it is, of course, as we're going to make these changes. So I'm going to try to add some spacing. I'm going to make this one bigger. I really need to get rid of some more of these. I'm going to move this one to another page. So I just did a Control-C, Control-V, and you can just move it onto another page just that easy.
I'm not actually. Are you showing that? We still see the. Or I'm still seeing the map. Okay, now it's gone. Now it's changed.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I did a Control-C, Control-V, and I was able to move this onto page 2.
Okay, we see that now. Thank you.
And then, yeah, keep shooting out any suggestions. I'll try and
Yeah, one of the points which you raised in your earlier content was there's no actual context, no goals that we're showing, it appears.
Yep. So we have no idea. We have no idea of anything of if we're doing well or not. And then let's, I don't think we need this pointless thing. We could probably minimize this down to one of these for time series. This seems like the worst idea ever to do this as a pie chart. Okay, so we'll take this. I'm just going to delete a couple of these, and if we really feel like we want them back, we can add some. And then I'm going to just create one more page just so we can kind of start separating out some cool things. But kind of like this one, being able to see it on time. You guys like the time one? I'm going to hold on to it. I'm just going to move it, though. I don't know where we want to put that yet. And if you have any questions about the product also as I'm going, feel free to ask it, like, can it do this or can it do that?
Yeah, we have one. What kind of export functionality do you have? PDF, Excel, etc.?
Yeah, so if I go up to here to save as file, I can go ahead and I can save this out as a PDF file right here. Okay, now you said you want me to give more space between these.
More space, yeah, and goal and context, or lines for context.
Okay. I'm just going to try and move this for just a moment. Actually, do we need all of these input controls? Probably not. So this is another thing is I absolutely hate it when you have like a billion options that you can choose from. So we're going to use someone mentioned, hey, can I use the actual map to drive the movement of the charts? And that's what we'll do is we'll have it filter, and then we'll just move this over to here. So
there was a question earlier about which mapping services are supported using Esri right now. If you have any.
So we only support Esri today. That's the only option that we have, if that's what you're meaning. But you can, if you can change a course, you can use like OpenStreetMap. You can use a bunch of different map bases. But for the actual mapping engine itself, it's just going to be Esri. But if you go down here to your base map, you can say I've got oceans, terrain, OpenStreetMap. And then supposedly, I mean, don't quote me on this, but supposedly in the future, you'll also be able to do it from your own custom maps. So you'll be able to insert your own custom maps as well. Okay, so I'm starting to feel a little bit better about this. Still not loving it, but definitely feeling a lot. Quantity sold. Okay, any other feedback that we're coming up with as we're watching this?
There's actually a feedback, not so much on the improving the chart, but you originally, when you had the clock, we had a question saying, where did you get the clock from?
Oh, yeah. So the clock is, I'm just going to save as, so we got a good copy of this somewhere. So the clock, you can come up to here, you can insert things. So I can insert a chart, pin visualization, cross tab, which is more like that that Excel-looking thing you saw just a moment ago that we moved to a second page. I can put on images, pictogram, text, etc.
Okay, cool. Question from Christopher Goodwin, is there a built-in recommendations engine, or does the product suggest visualizations based on its understanding of the data?
Yeah, so when I'm examining the data, it's going to, so if I come over to here, and I'm inside of this page 2 one, and I go into Designer, I can actually, here we go. I'm going to click Examine a million. It's going to automatically try to do the visualization for me. So here we go. This is price for New England and the West. And you see, I don't ever have to actually select things. Like, I don't have to go up and say, oh, I want to use this type of chart. It's just going to visualize it for me instantaneously. So as you click around, it'll come up with what it auto-suggests, as you see over here, as the visualization. And then I was telling you before that it'll kind of already lead you down a path. So it'll say, do you want to do a comparison? And these are kind of the comparison ones, or the trend ones, the distribution ones, etc. You probably heard earlier, I'm not really a fan of pie charts and donut charts. A lot of people aren't. And so it's kind of hidden under more if you're looking for those. But here you go. So you can go through and do all this inside of here. So once you find a chart that you like, so we could have said, oh, I really like that one chart. You could have spinned it out onto another page. So you could have said, I want to save this onto one of my other pages. Now, you don't have to do it just from that crosstab that we're seeing right here. I could have right from my front page, which, by the way, thank you, is looking way better already. I can go ahead and I can just create a new chart right here. Now, if you create a new chart right here, so we'll use our current existing model. When you create that new chart, it'll ask you kind of what type you're starting with. And so it's not going to auto-suggest at this point. So we could say, okay, well, I want to take a look at the quantity sold, and I want to take a look at it by, let's say, the product group or something like that. And that's pretty nice. And check this out also. So it's hard to see it because I'm using the same color for the bar. So I'm going to change my background color to white so it pops. But you can see kind of inside of here. And actually, I like that way better than this annoying yellow chart. So let's remove that. Whoops. So you can see that it already knows to do it also as a vertical instead of a horizontal chart. And the reason why it's going to do a vertical instead of a horizontal chart is because of the fact that if you do something like this, this could also be conveyed as being a time-based thing. So usually if you do something that is horizontal, it means like over time. So this actually probably isn't even the best format for that. So if I went back, I could go into my builder and I could say, whoops, not my builder, my formatting. And there should be, yeah, chart orientation. And I guess I said that wrong. Flip that. So yeah, so I guess they call it horizontal, and really they're meaning horizontally stacking instead of running horizontally. But yeah, you get the idea. So this way it's easier to compare them.
There's a question in general about the data from Matt Shaw. What's the purpose of the information we're trying to convey? Is it a demo, or is there actually any specific purpose that you could illustrate?
Yeah. So, and that's, okay, so now we're getting into some really good questions, which is what are we trying to show? What are we trying to convey? And we're trying to get into a much better area. Also, I love our story so much better. I'm just going to hold on to this. I'm going to copy this out, and we'll deal with this later. Because we're just trying to simplify this thing down, right? And same with this one. We'll just copy this one out for now. And, whoops, that didn't pick up the right one. Okay, so throw that one somewhere. So what's the story? So now I can kind of see my sales revenue by my region. I can see my quantity sold on my product group. I still don't know if there's a story really going on here. I'm also going to get rid of some of that chart junk. I don't know if anyone's mentioned that already, but there is a lot of chart junk on these. Like it already said sale revenue. Anytime I've got a legend that's really for one item, I'm obviously going to try to get rid of that legend since I can just put that in the title of itself. I probably don't need these subtitles either. So I'm just going to hide those. And then it auto-generated a title for me. And this is just me. Everyone's got a different way of doing it, but I usually don't show the region. The end of the title. I'll just keep it really simple. Like, I should be able to figure out this is by region, right? I don't need to say sales revenue by region. If someone read this, they'd probably figure it out pretty quick that that's what it is.
So we did have a comment that the light blue on the bars is not enough contrast, but is that a personal thing of you or a design style?
No, it's not a personal thing of me. So let's change it. I'll show you how in just 1 second. That's a great piece of feedback, and I agree. It's too low contrast. It's a great point. So let's see if we can change it. So we have these default colors, and we were kind of throwing down a default color that was just more muted, right? But that blue is too low contrast. So what we can do is we can actually add so here are the standard palettes. We can go ahead and add our own palette. And we can take that blue, and if we want, we can just make it darker like this. And it's going to create a brand new palette for me. And there we go. And I agree. I think that's way stronger now. Easier to read. It's showing up better.
Okay.
And now,
sorry.
Go for it.
A couple of functional questions which came in. Can we support conditional formatting and can we support drilling between the pages and between the charts?
Yeah, let's show some of that. So I like these ideas. Also, I like this chart that we're coming up with. So first off, let's do some, someone mentioned way earlier, which kind of connects to this, is can I drill from one chart, can I make one chart impact another one? So let's do our linked analysis, and let's say anything I do to this chart is going to affect the entire story. We're going to do the same thing, anything I do to this chart affects the entire story. I don't think I can do that yet on a geo chart. And keep in mind, this product just came out yet, so I can't do it, I can't push from a geo chart, but I can do the opposite direction. But keep in mind, this product came out in November. It's got 350 developers. They have a new release of it every 2 weeks. It's new functionality. So if we hit something that we can't do that you're asking for, it'll probably come into our roadmap in the near future. But now, someone was talking about before, now check this out. If I go ahead and say I want to just drill just on the south, it's going to refilter my entire page on the south. And there you go. So now it's showing just those sales in the south, I mean those stores in the south with its sales broken down. Now, we also talked about a lot earlier of what's our story here. Now, I would say so far we're looking at, it's pretty much just an overview dashboard, right? It's like, what's my sales revenue? How much quantity am I selling as a company? And let's throw in maybe a logo really quick so this looks. So we'll say this is like our blank company sales overview or something. And we can also change this. So let's change this to be more modern font like Lotto, or however you pronounce that.
So there's actually another technical question that came in about the underlying architecture of databases. Is SAP BW on HANA needed to use SAP Cloud for Analytics? I don't believe it is, but
no.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. So your data could be, you can upload an Excel file, you can connect to Salesforce, you can connect to wherever your data is located. And there's like, right now our data connectivity is semi-limited, but keep your eyes peeled. A lot more data connectivity will be announced in the very near future. I can't really say any more than that, but yeah, we'll have more data connectivity. So, okay, so we have it now where I think we hit, I'm trying to catch up with some of the earlier ones, which is kind of drive some things that are happening from one chart to another chart. I think we've shown that. I can also go ahead and I can have it where I can hyperlink. So people were saying, could I hyperlink it? If I click on something, could I have it where it hyperlinks me to another thing? Yes. So you could say I'm going to hyperlink to another story, another page, or even an external URL. So you could do that through here as well. I don't know if that answers your question on that one.
Yeah,
so we can kind of, and that's really important because, like we were talking about before, we're going to want to tier our information and hide information and reveal it at different times.
A couple of things, Jacob, which were mentioned before, the use of reference lines, contact to show context and goals, and also conditional formatting. I wondered if you would be able to show anything there where it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say we have on this one, so these are all great points, and I'm so glad we didn't forget about that. So for this one, let's do a dynamic reference line, and we're just going to show the average sales revenue. And there we go. So we can dynamically have a line like that, right? And maybe that's interesting to someone. And actually, we can go back over here and we can say, you know what? Actually, if you are below average, we're going to make you red. So now we know if like the Atlantic Southwest, if they're below average in sales revenue. Now this is just for example. This probably isn't the best thing because maybe they have more stores, or maybe they have more whatever. So maybe it would be like a per store average that you'd actually want to show it being red. But today we're just going to show off some of the functionality. And then maybe on this one, we want to do something similar. We want to add like a very specific thing. So we could do a reference line again and say we're going to do a fixed value. And let's say our fixed value is something like 200,000. And we'll just say that this is our goal. And now we've created that. So nice. So we're starting to get a little bit more context on what we're doing. We're still kind of missing an overall story, but for this period of time, I honestly think we've done a pretty bang-up job on making this a lot nicer looking than when we first started. So I'm going to do something else also here, which you guys didn't know about, but I'll show you, is we also have, you see that in the U.S., this kind of wraps around this coast, and if we wanted to, we could overlay it with another data set. And so this is showing hurricanes in the U.S. And so you can actually see that it kind of follows that hurricane path. So I'm going to shrink this down to be really thin lines. Now this is all the paths of hurricanes, and we see that, we're getting a lot of activity in those stores that are near hurricane stuff. And if we go down now, if we said, I want to actually take a look at what I sell. So I'm just going to drill down. I'm just curious what kind of apparel I'm selling. Selling boots, gloves, and rain jackets. So I'm kind of like very focused on that type of stuff, is selling those types of products, things that could be useful in a hurricane. So let's see, what are my household goods? Mops, buckets, hammers, and nails. So yeah, we're definitely hurricane friendly with our products. But now you can see we've kind of got this nice story that we're able to showcase, and this is still overview, but let's say a blank company is focused on, disaster relief necessities. Well, now we can see, are our stores located in places that line up with that? How are our products doing according to our goals? And then I could still go in here and I could check and uncheck these to show specific stores and how they're doing on their sales. How are you guys feeling? I feel like this is way stronger than when we first got started.
So a quick question, relevant question here on the maps. What references do you need on your data to plot the data points on the map? Is it latitude, longitude, or place names, postcodes? What's supported?
Yeah, so today what is supported is lat long. I believe more things will be supported in the future, but I'm not positive, so I can't really commit to that. But right now it's lat long. And then if you wanted, you saw how we keep adding layers. You can just keep layering it up. And so if for some weird reason we want to show nuclear test sites, you can then filter on it too. So you've got like these nuclear test sites that are showing up. Let's see, is there a bright color we can choose so you can see it really easy? Make it Prisma bright. Okay. So, and then what you can do, which is kind of cool, is you can actually run filters. So on this map filter below, I could go ahead and I could say, now I want to be able to see anytime the location is within, let's say, 200 kilometers of a nuclear test site. Not sure why you'd ever want to do that, but there you go. So, but this could be really helpful for if you had tracking all of your competitor stores. So, or if you were tracking, like, we sell to U.S. colleges, how close are we, to college students, how close we are to major U.S. colleges. So you can actually do these types of filters, and it's a lot of value for these companies to be able to really quickly see where am I in relation to these. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn back off that one. So, and you can rename your pages, of course. So we'll call this our overview. Raw data details. Now, if you haven't already, I'd highly recommend going to sapcloudanalytics.com and signing up for a trial account if you haven't already. And you can get in, you can play around and create your own stories as well. And you can see that you can create pretty much quite a range of data visualizations right from within the product today. And thank you, everyone, for your feedback today, because we were able to create a much stronger story from this.
Yeah,
and we talked
a couple of quick questions I think that are pertinent. There have been many questions, and I apologize we haven't been able to get through to all of them. But a couple of questions. People are saying, can you support? Can Cloud for Analytics support user-based calculations? So I guess if the data doesn't support something you want to show, can you add your own calculations? Don't know if you can show something on that.
Yeah. So let's go into raw data really quick, and I'll show that. So inside of here, I could have said, let's take a look at, and tell me if this is what you're thinking of, but let me take a look at B6 plus C6, and it'll do that calculation. And not only that, I could visualize that calculation. So here it is, showing that 67, 64. And I could have done multiple similar types of calculations, pinned them together, created my own stories right off of them. And so, and we're adding more calculations all the time. I'm actually not sure where someone asked me the other day where a list of all of our calculations are. I don't know where they are right now, but a lot of that functionality you can do right within here, a lot of those calculations.
Okay, and another question, I apologize, I lost the person who posted it, but regarding predictive capabilities, can we show anything of that within any of the charts, some kind of regression or other types of predictive capability?
Yeah, so predictive capability, I would just we do have that in our roadmap, is we're going to be adding predictive capability. We're hoping to share something about that very, very soon, but there's nothing that I can share with you at this time, unfortunately. You do have a workaround for the very limited future until you hear that announcement, which is that you can, of course, do it already using our predictive tools that integrate with HANA, and they consume a HANA model that's doing it that way. And my main hope for today is that you're able to get an idea of what you could visualize inside of here and how to avoid making something too terrible. Oops, I wonder why I'm pushing the wrong thing. And we'll hang out on the line. So if you have any questions at all after this, don't worry, we'll still be on the line.
Yeah, a question from Nick Hill regarding the pages that you've created. Can we resequence them in a definite order if we wanted to change them?
What do you mean? Like, oh, you just want to reorder pages?
Mm-hmm.
So that's coming in a later phase. I know that seems really obvious, but no, we just haven't been able to do that part of the functionality yet. So that will be coming very soon, though, is the ability to, under maintain pages, to be able to drag and drop them, is what you're talking about? Yeah, because right now you can't.
Yeah, and Nikhil, please, if you want to respond to that, and if Jacob hasn't answered that, please do repost. Nice comment from the telephone number ID. Is a blank company seems to be hurricane friendly. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and then as you see, you have like those seasonal spikes of the hurricanes on the time map. So each August through October, you're going to see that spike from the hurricane season hitting it.
Yeah,
so you can kind of see that.
Thanks. A couple of questions about data export or export. Question. Matt Potts said, "Great session. Thanks, Matt. Can the contents model with data and story be exported and shared?" And another question from telephone number ID, can the pages or boxes be saved as something other than a PDF? So a couple of export questions, one about the data, one about PDFs.
Okay. So inside of here, you can collaborate. So you can like chat with people. I can come into here, I can invite someone, and we can collaborate on this. I can also come into here, and I can share it with somebody. So this shares the online version of it. Now, can I export it in different formats other than PDF? Today, no. And that's, again, mostly because of the fact that this product is just a couple of months old. And so we just haven't gotten to that point yet. So right now you can just save it as a PDF, or you can share it with someone online and have like the full online functionality. And was there another question? I just missed a question in that.
So there was a question from Bhavin repost. Can the output export be in a format that is still interactive with a data snapshot, but outside of the cloud?
No, not yet. I wish I could share some stuff. We're looking at some really cool stuff in terms of what you could do, but no, today it's just a flat, static, what you see is what you get PDF, or you're going to be sending that user into the Cloud for Analytics system to have that full functionality.
And another question about the underlying architecture from Christina Stoppelman is SAP HANA required for Cloud for Analytics per se? I don't think there's a requirement.
No, not at all. And a lot of people actually ask that question because it's hosted on HTTP. It becomes a really obvious question of, well then, do I need to have HANA myself? No, you don't. No, it shouldn't matter to you. It's like if we were hosted on Amazon or anything else, it wouldn't matter to you what we're hosted on. But great question. We get that nonstop.
Thank you. A question from Telephone ID again. Shall we expect some C4A features to be incorporated into the other BI tools as well?
We are always looking at that, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, to everyone in general, we do have expert series in all of the other analytics products, so you'll be seeing more and more of those as time goes by, if not already. So please look out for those. And indeed, the other way as well. I've seen a lot of features from Lumira coming into Cloud for Analytics already. So so there are a lot of good solutions from SAP. So a question from AJ, what are the limitations on data volume consumed by the report elements? Should it be pre-aggregated?
Okay, so that's a pretty interesting question. There's different ways you can handle it. So if we're pulling your data from a HANA model, we'll actually only depending how you have it set up, we'll usually only pull the aggregate. So we push the calculation down to your system, so we don't have to pull back like, you know, a billion lines of records and be able to do our calculation. We'll actually push it to your system and say, will you run this calculation for me? And then we will visualize the results, and then we can, of course, merge it with other data sets, et cetera. Now, if you're uploading the data into the system, right now that per user per month gets 1 gigabyte, but that's usually like users uploading their own Excel file. For an Excel file, our limit was 20 megs. It's just doubled to 40 megs. So you can upload a 40 megabyte Excel file into the system, and you can play with that much data. And I think they're looking again to increase it in the future, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, very good. Thank you. There's a question from user MGR on the calculations that you showed earlier. So are those calculations similar to those in Excel? I suppose that the question means can you support additional functions, and how does it behave in general like Excel calculations? Yeah,
so you can do all of your basic calculations today, but every 2 weeks they're adding stuff to this product, so I actually don't know all the calculations we support. And unfortunately, yeah, I just don't know. That's a question I don't know the answer to of what all we currently support with our functions. Because I know there's a place that's hidden, which is like this, where you can click on it and it shows you all of our supported functions, but I don't remember how to get there right now.
A question, I apologize, AJ has reposted and somebody else asked, is localization supported? I know the answer is yes, but can you elaborate?
Yeah. So are you talking about like language support and things like that? We also have data centers throughout the world. So if your country has certain data requirements, we can, of course, make sure that your C4A instance is pointed at a data center that abides by your local laws and regulations. In terms of language support, that's another one where it's like we keep adding languages. So if there's a specific one you have in mind, just shoot Adrian or I an email.
Question from Daniela. An interesting one. Are there any plans to integrate more charts in C4A, for example, 3D charts? I guess it's I know you're not a fan of 3D, but it's a good general question. It's a good general question, like you know how Lumira is extensible with for example D3 charts. So it's a more specific and general question.
Yeah, so unfortunately I do know a little bit about this, but I can't speak to it right now. We're just under locks on that aspect. So we just can't tell you any. I'm sorry, there's like 3 questions in a row I can't really answer. But on that one, it's that there is something that's coming soon, but we can't talk about it just yet. Okay, so that's fine, and I will also say stay tuned because we'll have more of that in an upcoming webinar. So please follow the SCN page, which I posted earlier. I guess another UX or UI general question for you. Do you recommend Stephen Few for dashboarding and visualization? Yeah, Stephen Few is great, as is Edward Tufts. They're both really good. And a lot of the principles that we follow are very similar to the principles they follow, which is like keep it flat, follow kind of an IBCS standard. And we didn't really show you the IBCS standard in here today. We could do a separate webinar at that at some point, but it's very similar to exactly how Stephen Few designs, which is like, you know, black with certain swatches, with exact certain spacing, and keeping all the bars the exact size. And actually, if you go into your designer, you actually have that type of ability today. So this is something you didn't really have before, but you can actually, sorry, not for this one, for your chart scaling. So you can actually make sure that everything looks exactly the same, that all of your charts remain the exact same size. So that way, like, yeah, we follow their mindset quite a bit. We didn't get to all that cool functionality today, but it's all in there.